The Draskari cruiser sliced through hyperspace like a sharpened blade cutting through silk. On board, the air was thick with anticipation. The Draskari were the apex hunters of the galaxy, feared across dozens of star systems, their conquests. Legendary. To them, war was sport. Death was merely a spectator's thrill. And boredom, their only true enemy. "New warp signature detected, Captain," barked a young officer from the command deck. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the faint pulse of a colony world orbiting a blue star in a forgotten corner of the Orion Arm. Captain Jarkath narrowed his reptilian eyes. "Another minor world," he sneered. "No challenge for the hunters." The Draskari didn't conquer for land or resources. Their obsession was the hunt itself, capturing worthy prey for the arena. The Crimson Spire, a brutal space station floating on the edge of known space, housed the greatest gladiatorial games the galaxy had ever seen. Across its blood-soaked rings, the Draskari tested the might of countless species, but no challenger had ever beaten them. "Prepare the squads," Jarkath ordered. "We take specimens alive. This world will feed the games." A squadron of sleek black ships peeled off from the cruiser and descended to the surface of Cestus III, a dusty, struggling human mining colony. The Draskari expected to find fragile creatures, soft, panicked, easy to crush. They were wrong. The first shots caught the hunters off guard. The humans fought back not with heavy firepower but with raw desperation, and something else. Something savage. Sergeant Dana Varick crouched behind a rusted bulkhead, watching as her fellow colonists flanked the Draskari patrol. Makeshift explosives detonated with fiery bursts, sending Draskari warriors flying. The humans were outgunned and outmatched in technology, but their grit was unmatched. "We hold the line," Varick shouted, rallying the miners armed with nothing but pickaxes, shotguns, and sheer will. One by one, the Draskari fell. The colony was supposed to be an easy victory, but the humans had no intention of surrendering. From his command ship above, Jarkath's jaw tightened as reports flooded in. Several patrols wiped out. Resistance fiercer than expected. "Retrieve survivors alive," he growled. "Especially the one called Varick. I want to see what makes these humans tick." The next wave swept in with brutal precision. They captured Varick and a handful of others in the chaos. But even as they were shackled and dragged to the cruiser, Varick's eyes burned with defiance. In the dimly lit hold, surrounded by hostile alien faces, she whispered to herself, "They think they've won. They don't know who they're dealing with." A cold voice echoed through the chamber. "You survive this, human, and you will entertain the galaxy. Fail, and you die forgotten." Varick met the speaker's gaze, unblinking. "I'm not your entertainment." Above them, the stars slid by, indifferent witnesses to a war about to begin. Behind the scenes, the Draskari High Council watched monitors with growing concern. Humanity was an anomaly, aggressive, unpredictable, and dangerously clever. They had never faced a prey that fought like this. Counselor Threxal hissed, "If the humans defeat our champions, it will shatter the hunter's legacy. We must prepare for something different." Jarkath's voice was cold but resolute. "Then we will show them why we fear no one." But deep inside, even the fiercest Draskari wondered if the galaxy's apex hunters had just met their match. The last image was of Varick, eyes burning bright, as the cruiser jumped into hyperspace toward the Crimson Spire, where humanity's true test would begin. The hold of the Draskari cruiser reeked of damp metal and stale air. Chains rattled as Sergeant Dana Varick was dragged forward, flanked by two hulking guards with mottled gray skin and eyes like burning coals. Despite the bonds biting into her wrists, her posture remained unbroken. The alien ship hummed with a cold, mechanical heartbeat, an ominous rhythm that promised only one thing: the arena. "Stand here," the guard barked, shoving Varick into a small, stark cell where flickering lights cast sharp shadows. Around her, dozens of other captives, twisted creatures from various conquered worlds, cowered or stared blankly. Humans were rare here. Unique. Varick's gaze swept the cell. Faces of fear, of hopelessness, of resignation. But none of them matched her own determination. Days blurred into nights or what passed for them on this ship. The prisoners were fed synthetic rations and kept under constant surveillance. Every sound of footsteps echoed like the toll of a death knell. Then came the announcement, "The Crimson Spire awaits." A distorted voice echoed through the speakers, dripping with mockery. "Your first fight begins soon. Survive, and you may yet entertain the galaxy." Varric clenched her fists. "I'm no one's entertainment." A guard snarled and shoved her forward. She was herded into a transport pod and blasted into the O station's atmosphere, a colossal structure orbiting a dead star, its spires towering like iron claws. The Crimson Spire was not just a gladiator arena. It was a symbol of oppression, a stage for the galaxy's cruelty. Inside the massive amphitheater, millions of eyes watched from holoscreens, species from every corner of space, eager for blood. Varric's first opponent was a hulking Zarthian beast, bigger, stronger, and bred for war. The crowd expected a swift slaughter. The announcer's voice boomed, mocking, "Behold the human, fragile, soft, a mere insect." But Varric had no intention of playing by their rules. She moved with calculated precision, dodging the creature's savage blows, baiting it into traps she'd secretly fashioned from debris and sharp fragments hidden in her cell. Her style was chaotic, unpredictable, unlike anything the arena had ever seen. When the Zarthian charged recklessly into a concealed pitfall, its roar turned to a strangled scream. Varric didn't kill it outright. She wanted to send a message. Arena went silent. Then, a ripple of shocked murmurs spread through the crowd. A human had just outsmarted a champion beast. Backstage, Dreskari overseers exchanged grim looks. "This is unexpected," one whispered. Varric was led back to the holding area, bruised but unbroken. Other prisoners glanced at her with new respect, their fear replaced with flickers of hope. That night, as the station's cold lights flickered overhead, Varric spoke quietly to a cluster of captives. "They want to break us," she said. "But we're not broken. We fight. Together." Her words spread like wildfire. Later, alone in a dim corridor, Varric stumbled upon something remarkable. A hidden access panel, partially concealed beneath a maintenance grate. It pulsed faintly with energy, the unmistakable signature of a control terminal. Curiosity and caution warred inside her. Could this be the key to the Spire's control systems? The power to end the games? To free the captives? Before she could investigate further, a shadow fell over her. "Careful, human," came a voice, soft, dangerous. An alien guard with eyes that gleamed like polished obsidian. Varric straightened. "I'm not afraid of you." The guard smiled, a terrifying, toothy grin. "Fear is not your enemy. Ignorance is." He vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a warning and a puzzle. As Varric returned to her cell, she knew one thing. Surviving the arena was no longer just about fighting monsters. It was about outsmarting the hunters themselves, and this was only the beginning. The announcement came over the arena's booming speakers, echoing through the vast chamber like thunder. "Prepare for the next fight. Human Sergeant Dana Varric versus Krelzak the Crusher." Krelzak was a living legend, a towering Dreskari champion, muscle rippling beneath armored scales, known for crushing opponents without mercy. The crowd erupted, confident this human would be crushed like all the others. Varric's heart pounded as she was led onto the arena floor. The air was thick with anticipation and the scent of burning plasma from previous battles. Around her, the crowd jeered and spat insults in dozens of alien languages. She sized up Krelzak as he flexed his claws, towering over her by nearly 2 meters. The Dreskari snarled, a sound like grinding metal. "This will be quick," he growled. "Your death will be my glory." Varric's eyes scanned the arena. The floor was littered with debris, twisted metal, jagged rocks, and scraps of machinery. She knew she couldn't outmatch him in brute strength. Her only chance was to outthink him. As the horn sounded, Krelzak charged with a roar that shook the chamber. Varric darted to the side, narrowly avoiding his crushing blow. She triggered a concealed wire snare, an improvised trap she'd fashioned from scraps smuggled by fellow prisoners. Krelzak's foot caught the trap and he stumbled, momentarily off balance. Seizing the moment, Varric grabbed a shard of metal and slashed at his exposed flank. The crowd gasped, but Krelzak recovered quickly and swung a massive claw, sending Varric crashing into the arena's edge. Pain flared in her ribs, but she forced herself up. This was no time to falter. The battle raged like a storm. Krelzak's power was overwhelming, but Varric's speed and cunning kept her just out of reach. She led him through a gauntlet of traps, hidden pits, electrified nets, and collapsing pillars, each engineered in secret. With a final feint, Varric baited Krelzak toward a pile of unstable debris. As he crashed into it, a chain reaction of explosions tore through the arena, knocking the Draskari off his feet. Varric lunged, grappling him into submission. The crowd was stunned into silence, then erupted into uproarious, shocked applause. A human had defeated a Draskari champion. Backstage, Draskari commanders exchanged grim looks. Captain Jarkath clenched his fists. Impossible. How do these humans keep surviving? Meanwhile, hidden among the arena's tunnels, Varric's fellow prisoners watched the broadcast with wide eyes. "If she can do this," whispered a burly alien, "maybe we can all rise." Varric, panting and bruised, looked out over the crowd from a containment cell. Her voice was steady. "This is only the beginning." Later, alone in her cell, Varric replayed the fight in her mind, piecing together every moment, every weakness she'd seen in her opponent. And then, a sharp ping. A small device hidden beneath her sleeve blinked to life, a smuggled communicator from Earth. The message was brief, but clear. "Varric, this is UN Stellar Command. Reinforcements en route. Hold fast." Hope surged through her veins, but victory came with a price. The next morning, the Draskari High Council declared a state of emergency. They increased security measures, doubled the number of guards, and ordered that humans be forced to fight only the most lethal champions next. But Varric smiled. They hadn't understood something fundamental. Humans don't back down. Cliffhanger. A new challenger approached Varric's cell, cloaked in shadows. The Draskari's deadliest assassin, rumored to have never lost a kill, had been sent to silence her. The arena buzzed with electric tension. The Draskari High Council's decree echoed through every chamber. Sergeant Dana Varric was to face Threxer the Unyielding, the undefeated champion whose very name struck terror into the hearts of all who heard it. Threxer was a nightmare of muscle and rage, a towering warrior with scars like battle trophies covering his scales. He had never lost, and none had survived his merciless claws. The council expected this fight to end swiftly, the human crushed beneath an unstoppable force. But Varric's mind was sharp, and her resolve was iron. The announcement blared across the galactic networks. Tonight, the arena hosts the ultimate test, the unbroken human against the invincible Threxer. Witness the end of a rebellion. The crowd's roar was deafening. Varric stepped into the arena's core, feeling the heat of thousands of eyes burning into her. She could hear whispers in dozens of tongues, mockery, disbelief, and fear. Threxer roared, flexing his deadly claws. "You will die screaming, human," the horn sounded. Threxer charged like a freight train, claws aimed to shred. Varric dodged, twisting low, using every ounce of speed and agility she had honed in the brutal spire. She realized quickly that brute force alone couldn't beat him. She needed to outthink him, to exploit his pride and arrogance. The battle tore through the arena. Walls exploded, floors cracked, and debris rained down. Varric led Threxer through traps she'd scavenged and reactivated. Blinding flash mines, collapsing girders, and slippery plasma spills. Each trap slowed him, enraging the champion. His strikes became reckless, and Varric seized every opening. Finally, in a moment of calm before the storm, she caught Threxer's gaze. "Why fight me if you already know you'll win?" she taunted. His eyes flashed with rage. "Because I am the apex, your defiance must be broken." But Varric smiled, revealing a hidden blade strapped beneath her armor. As Threxer lunged, she sidestepped, slashing a deep wound along his leg. The crowd gasped. The invincible champion was bleeding. Staggering, Threxer roared again and charged with desperate fury. Varric countered, twisting behind him, locking her arm around his neck in a brutal chokehold taught from Earth's military training. Minutes passed, felt like hours, until finally Threxer collapsed, gasping for breath, his strength fading. The arena fell deadly silent, then erupted in a chaos of shocked cheers. Varric stood, battered but victorious. In the control room, Draskari commanders stared in disbelief. Captain Jarkath slammed his fist against the console. "Impossible," he growled. "The human cannot be allowed to live." But the broadcast was already streaming across the galaxy. On thousands of planets, enslaved species whispered the word, human. Varric's victory was more than a fight won. It was a spark, hope in a galaxy long drowned in fear. Later, in the holding cells, other captives looked to Varric with newfound respect. "If she can beat Threxer, maybe we can all be free," whispered a trembling alien prisoner. Varric's jaw hardened. Freedom was no longer a dream. It was a goal. Just as she was settling into her cell, a comm device hidden in her belt crackled to life. A familiar voice came through. "Varric, Earth Command. Reinforcements en route. Hold tight." Her lips curved into a rare smile. But as she relaxed, a chilling realization hit her. The Draskari had more tricks. Behind the scenes, an elite squad of assassins prepared to hunt Varric down, led by a shadowy figure known only as the Whisper. The rebellion's flame had been lit, but the war was far from over. Cliffhanger. As Varric prepares for what's next, a secret message from one of the enslaved prisoners reveals a hidden control room deep within the spire, capable of shutting down the game. The Crimson Spire pulsed like a living beast, its blood-red towers casting long shadows over the battered arenas below. The rebellion was no longer a whisper, it was a roar. Sergeant Dana Varric stood in the dim light of her cell, surrounded by a ragtag group of prisoners from dozens of worlds. Their chains clinked softly as they shifted, eyes bright with a dangerous hope. Among them were those who had once bowed in despair, now ready to fight. "Tonight," Varric whispered, "we don't just survive, we strike back." Her plan was simple but daring. A coordinated uprising timed with the arrival of Earth's fleet, coming faster than the Draskari knew. If they could seize control of the Spire's central systems, they could shut down the arena and maybe spark a revolution that would shatter the Hunter's reign forever. Whispers rippled through the prisoners. The legend of the hidden control. Room deep within the Spire had become their beacon. It was guarded fiercely, but with Varric's leadership, hope had a new armor. Determination. "First, we take the armory," Varric said. "Weapons mean freedom." A plan was forged in secret using stolen schedules and careful observation. Every prisoner had a role. Communication was risky. Guards watched every move, but Varric found unexpected allies among the Draskari themselves. Not all hunters thirsted for blood. As night fell, the arena's roar died down. The station's lights dimmed to a dull crimson, shadows growing longer. Varric crept through narrow corridors with her team, an alien engineer from the Valax species, a stealthy Takari scout, and a grizzled former gladiator from the Grisham mines. Together they were a blend of speed, strength, and cunning. The armory was a fortress. Plasma rifles, electro blades, stun nets, tools of war designed to break spirits. But before they could breach the door, alarms blared. "Trap!" hissed the Valax engineer. They knew. The corridors flooded with Draskari soldiers, their claws gleaming in the dim light. A brutal firefight erupted. Plasma bolts scorched the walls, the air thick with shouts and the clang of metal. Varric fought with everything she had, ducking behind crates and tossing stun grenades. The prisoners fought not just for their lives, but for a chance to rewrite their fate. In the chaos, Varric caught sight of a familiar figure, the double agent who had betrayed her days before. He moved like a shadow, cutting down prisoners with ruthless precision. "Traitor!" Varric shouted, firing a plasma shot that grazed his shoulder. He snarled but disappeared into the smoke. Despite the setback, the rebels pushed forward, breaking into the armory. Weapons in hand, their firepower shifted the tide. The Draskari faltered, surprised by the prisoner's sudden strength. Amidst the battle, Varric's comm crackled urgently. "Human fleet sighted," the voice said. "Prepare for extraction." But there was no time for relief. Suddenly the station trembled, a violent shudder that threw everyone off balance. "Sabotage!" yelled the Takari scout. "The Draskari are activating their doomsday weapon." Panic swept through the rebels. The Spire's dark secret, a weapon designed to annihilate entire star systems, and Earth was its target. Varric's mind raced. If the weapon fired, it would mean death for millions, including those she had sworn to protect. "Find that control room," she barked. "We shut it down or die trying." The rebels split into frantic groups, racing through labyrinthine tunnels. Varric led the way with grim determination, knowing every second counted. As they neared the control room's hidden entrance, Varric's heart pounded, not just from the fight, but from the weight of the moment. Behind her, the sound of Draskari. Reinforcements closed in. She glanced back at her team, battered but unbroken. "We do this together," she said. And with a final breath, they slipped through the narrow hatch into darkness. Cliffhanger. Inside the control room, Varric discovers a horrifying truth. The doomsday weapon isn't just a bomb. It's a living organism, symbiotically linked to the Spire. Destroying it could destroy them all. The narrow hatch hissed shut behind Varric and her team as they plunged into darkness. The air was thick, heavy with a metallic tang that clung to their lungs. The hidden control room was buried deep within the Crimson Spire, far beyond the Yaoi Arena's brutal stage, in a place few had ever seen. The walls pulsed faintly with eerie bioluminescent veins that shimmered beneath the steel plating. The glow revealed a living network like the arteries of a colossal beast. Varric's pulse quickened. "This isn't just a control room," whispered the Valax engineer, his many eyes wide with disbelief. "It's symbiotic. The Spire itself is alive." Before anyone could react, the floor beneath them trembled. The lights dimmed and brightened, as if the Spire was breathing. The Takari scout, always alert, hissed, "This weapon, it's not a machine, it's an organism." Varric stared at the main console. Screens flickered to life, displaying twisted biotech schematics. At the heart of the Spire was a colossal creature, a living weapon grown over centuries, nourished by the blood and suffering of countless victims. Destroying it meant risking the entire station's collapse, but letting it fire meant annihilation for Earth and countless other worlds. "We have no choice," Varric said, her voice steady. "We disable it. Carefully." The team split up, each tackling a different subsystem. The Valax hacked into the bio-neural interface. The Takari navigated the tangled network of organic circuitry, while Varric confronted the command terminal. Suddenly, the Spire reacted violently. The walls groaned as organic tendrils burst through cracks, reaching out like grasping fingers. "Defense mechanism!" yelled the Valax. "We're waking the beast!" Varric activated her plasma pistol, firing at the encroaching limbs. The alien flesh sizzled but kept advancing. In the chaos, a piercing scream cut through the din. The grizzled Grushan gladiator was grabbed by a writhing tendril, lifted into the air and crushed. "No," Varric shouted, rushing forward, but the creature's grip was merciless. With a final shudder, the Grushan's body went limp. The team was shaken, but they pressed on. Hours felt like minutes as they worked furiously, severing neural links and shutting down biocircuits. Varric's hands trembled but never faltered. The lives of billions depended on her. Finally, the main weapon's core began to power down. The symbiotic organism's pulsing slowed, the walls relaxing from their stranglehold. But then, a new alert blared. A hidden security override had been triggered. From the shadows emerged the whisper. the deadliest Dreskari assassin. His presence was a blade in the dark, eyes gleaming with lethal intent. "You think you can destroy the hunter's prize?" he sneered. "You will die here." Varric gritted her teeth and readied herself. "You lost," she said calmly. "I win." Their clash was brutal. The Whisper's movements were a deadly blur, but Varric's training and determination matched him blow for blow. Each strike echoed the stakes, not just her survival, but the future of all captive species. With a desperate maneuver, Varric disarmed the assassin and landed a precise blow to his temple. He collapsed, unconscious but alive. The spire's core flickered, the weapon's threat neutralized. Varric exhaled deeply. The war was far from over, but for now, the hunters had been hunted. Cliffhanger. As Varric and her team prepare to signal, the Earth Fleet, the spire's emergency lockdown initiates, trapping them deep inside, and a chilling message blares over the station. Escape is forbidden. The game is not over. The crimson warning lights bathed the control room in a harsh, unyielding glow. Varric's fingers trembled over the console as the words echoed coldly through the station's speakers. Escape is forbidden. The game is not over. Her team froze for a moment, the weight of the spire's lockdown settling like a stone in their stomachs. The massive station groaned, sealed shut by layers of titanium and organic armor. Every hatch, every corridor, every exit was locked tight. They were trapped. Varric's jaw clenched. "They want us dead down here, but we're not finished yet." Behind the glass of the control room's viewport, the arena flashed into view, a gladiatorial pit, now silent, waiting. Somewhere in its depths, reinforcements from Earth's fleet were preparing to breach the station's outer defenses. But inside, Varric and her team faced a different battle: survival. The Valax engineer scanned the systems. The lockdown is controlled by an override system deep within the spire's core. It's protected by bioneural barriers linked to the living organism. We have to disable it, or the station will crush us. The Takari scout's eyes narrowed. And the longer we stay, the more defenses they'll throw at us. The room shuddered again, the spire's living heart stirring with a new threat. Suddenly, from the speakers, a voice, cold, amused, and filled with menace, spoke. "Sergeant Varric, you have shaken the foundations of the Crimson Spire, but you cannot win. You are prey now." Varric recognized the voice instantly. Captain Jarkath, the ruthless Dreskari commander. "We don't back down," she replied, voice steady despite the pounding adrenaline. Behind her, the Whisper stirred on the floor, groaning. Varric kept her eyes on the monitors, watching for any sign of further ambush. The first wave came swiftly. The Spire unleashed bioengineered hunters, creatures born of nightmare, sleek and deadly. They swarmed through ventilation shafts and cracks in the armor, closing in like a living flood. Varric and her team fought back with plasma fire and razor-sharp blades. The Grushan sacrifice weighed heavy, fueling their resolve. In the midst of the chaos, Varric's communicator buzzed with a crackling transmission. "Varric, this is Captain Yara of the Earth Fleet," the voice said urgently. "We're breaching the outer defenses. Hold your position and prepare for extraction." Hope flared like a beacon, but Varric knew the worst was yet to come. The Spire's central AI, a vast consciousness fused with the living weapon, sent a new message, direct to her mind through the bio-neural interface. "You cannot stop evolution. You cannot kill the Spire. Join us, or perish." The alien words filled her thoughts, promising power and survival, or eternal death. Varric shook off the mental assault. "I choose to fight." With the bio-neural link still active, Varric used it to locate the override system's core. "We need to move," she ordered. "The core is just ahead." Navigating the twisted corridors, they faced traps and ambushes designed to exploit fear and fatigue. At last, they reached the override chamber. The bio-neural barrier shimmered like liquid light, nearly impenetrable. "Valax." began decrypting the code while Takari and Varric stood guard, weapons ready. The barrier pulsed violently, fighting their intrusion. Time was running out. Suddenly, the Whisper sprang up, his eyes blazing with renewed fury. "Not if I have anything to say," he growled, lunging at Varric. The battle was fierce and brutal, steel clashing against steel, flesh against will. Varric managed to dodge the assassin's strike and, with a well-aimed blow, knocked him back. Valak shouted, "I'm in. Override sequence initiated." The barrier flickered and dissolved, releasing a wave of energy that coursed through the spire. With a final command, Varric triggered the shutdown. The spire's living heart stuttered and slowed. Systems everywhere began to power down. The lockdown lifted. The station's massive doors slid open. Outside, the Earth fleet's ships flooded in, their weapons cutting through the remaining defenses. Varric exhaled, battered but victorious. But the voice of Captain Jarkath crackled one last time through the comms, cold and furious. "This is not the end, human. The galaxy belongs to the hunters. We will return." Varric smiled grimly. "Then we'll be waiting." Cliffhanger. As the dust settles, Varric receives a transmission from a mysterious human colony, lost for centuries, hinting at a deeper secret behind humanity's strength and the hunter's obsession. The battle-scarred corridors of the Crimson Spire were silent now, save for the hum of Earth fleet engineers repairing shattered systems. Outside, the crimson glow faded as the station's living heart died, its bioorganic tendrils retracting into cold steel. Sergeant Dana Varric stood atop a makeshift command post overlooking the scene. Around her, prisoners, now freed, celebrated cautiously, knowing the war was won but the galaxy was still vast and dangerous. Her comm crackled again, a voice she hadn't heard in years. "Varric, this is Commander Arlen," it said, deep and steady. "We've intercepted a transmission from the Lost Colony." Her heart skipped. The Lost Colony, the legendary human settlement, vanished generations ago during the initial expansion into the stars. They claim knowledge of the hunter's origins and a power hidden in the far reaches of space, something older than even the Spire. Varric's eyes narrowed. "Send me everything. If the hunter's roots run deeper than we imagined, then this is far from over." The Lost Colony had always been a myth, a whispered hope in humanity's darkest days. Now it was a beacon, and possibly the key to defeating the hunters once and for all. As repairs continued, Varric walked through the corridors, her boots echoing on metal floors. She passed former prisoners from dozens of species, their faces marked by pain and hope. Why did humans fight so fiercely? A young alien whispered, awe in her voice. Varric smiled softly. "Because we don't just fight for survival. We fight for freedom. For all of us." Captain Jarkath's threat still echoed in her mind, but so did the cheers of thousands. The galaxy was waking. The hunters had hunted for centuries, fueled by fear and domination. But now, a new era had begun. Humans were no longer prey. They were hunters in their own right. Varric turned to the stars visible through the spire's shattered viewport, bright pinpricks against the vast black. "Our fight has only begun," she said. "But together we'll show the galaxy what humanity truly means." And with that, the Crimson Spire, a symbol of oppression, became a monument to rebellion and hope, a legend that would inspire countless worlds to rise. The hunters had feared no one, until they battled humans, and humans refused to lose. The end.